There's a particular kind of career mistake that's almost impossible to catch while you're making it. It's not the obvious kind: a bad job, a wrong industry, a company that fails. Those hurt fast. You feel them. This one is slower. It's the mistake of spending years getting better at something that the market is quietly deciding it needs less of. The skill still works. You still get paid for it. Your performance reviews are fine. But the ceiling on that skill, the salary it can command, the leverage it gives you, is already falling. You just won't see it in your paycheck for another 2 or 3 years. Most people won't notice until their salary does. So the question this video answers is, which skills are already in that decline, and what's actually driving it? This is most relevant to you if you're somewhere in the first 15 years of your career. You're still building. You're still deciding which skills to double down on. And you're operating in a moment where the usual signals, what pays well today, what your manager values, what gets you promoted, are not reliable guides to what will pay well in 5 years. The people most exposed here are not necessarily in obviously at-risk jobs. They're often in stable, well-paying roles. They're competent. They're credentialed. They've done exactly what they were supposed to do. But there's a category of skill they've been quietly building their career around. A category that is right now in structural decline, not because AI is replacing humans, but because of something more specific than that, something worth understanding properly. In 2011, a McKinsey analyst named James Manica led a study that tried to map every job in the U.S. economy by the tasks it required. Not by job title, by actual task. What the researchers found was that a huge portion of knowledge work across almost every industry consisted of something they called information processing. Collecting data, formatting it, moving it between systems, summarizing it, preparing it to be used by someone else. At the time, this felt like an interesting academic observation. Knowledge workers processed information. Sure, what wasn't visible in 2011 is visible now. That category of work, the collection, formatting, summarizing, and preparation of information, is precisely the category that large language models are structurally best at. Not all cognitive work, not judgment, not relationships, and not the ability to navigate ambiguity. But that specific layer, the information processing layer, is now automatable in a way it wasn't 3 years ago. And a significant number of people built the first decade of their career on that layer. To understand why certain skills lose value, you need to understand the mechanism. It's not AI does it instead. That's too simple, and it leads people to look for the wrong signals. The real mechanism works in 4 steps. Step 1. A skill becomes a commodity. A skill loses value when supply catches up to demand. When something that used to require training, time, and effort can now be done by anyone with access to a tool, the scarcity that gave the skill its value disappears. Think of what happened to basic photo editing after smartphones arrived. Professional retouching still has value, but the ability to crop, filter, and adjust a photo, that stopped being a differentiator almost overnight. The same thing is now happening to a specific layer of knowledge work. The layer I'd call execution of the known. Execution of the known means, given a clear problem with a known solution, do the work of applying that solution. Write the summary. Build the model from the template. Draft the first version. Synthesize the research. Format the report. These tasks required skill. They required training. They justified salaries. But the defining feature of execution of the known is that the logic is already understood. Someone just has to do the work. And that is exactly what AI tools are designed to do. Step 2. The floor drops, not the ceiling. Here's where most people get confused about AI and skill value. They think in terms of replacement. Either AI does the whole job or it doesn't. But that's not how it usually plays out. What actually happens is the floor drops. The minimum viable output that any competent person can produce goes up dramatically, which means the baseline, the thing you need to do just to be in the room, is no longer sufficient to justify your salary. Concrete example. 2 years ago, a junior consultant could spend a day synthesizing competitor research into a memo. That was a deliverable. That was value. Now, a senior consultant with an AI assistant can produce a first draft of that same memo in 40 minutes. The junior consultant can still do it. They're not replaced. But the task no longer justifies a day's billing. And if that task was a significant part of how they added value, that's a problem. The ceiling on strong human judgment didn't drop. The ceiling on being a diligent executor of known tasks did. Step 3. Proximity to AI determines the rate of decline. Not all skills are losing value at the same speed. The rate of decline tracks closely with one variable: how text-based and rule-governed the work is. The more a skill involves following explicit logic, reading instructions, applying criteria, transforming one format of information into another, the faster it's being commoditized. Writing first drafts, summarizing documents, building reports from templates, answering frequently asked questions, doing literature reviews, populating spreadsheets with structured data, translating outputs from one format to another. These are not low-skill tasks. Many of them require genuine knowledge. But their defining feature is that the logic is explicit. It can be described, which means it can be automated. Compare that to the skills on the other side of this line: navigating a conversation where the other person doesn't know what they want, making a judgment call under genuine uncertainty where there is no correct answer to retrieve, building trust with someone who is skeptical, synthesizing inputs from 10 different directions into a decision that needs to stick. These are also knowledge work, but their defining feature is that the logic is not fully explicit, and that's what's preserving their value. Step 4. The skill you think you're building often isn't the one you're actually building. This is the step that makes the whole thing so hard to catch. When you spend a year getting good at financial modeling, you think you're building financial modeling skill, and you are, but you're also making a bet about which component of that skill is the valuable one. If the valuable component was the ability to navigate Excel quickly, execute the template, and produce a clean output, that bet is aging badly. If the valuable component was the judgment about what to model, the ability to explain what the numbers mean to someone who is afraid of them, and the capacity to push back when the assumptions are wrong, that bet is aging well. The skill title is the same. The underlying component you're actually relying on is what determines whether you're building equity or losing it. Step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture. This isn't about specific job titles. It's about the layer within your role where you spend most of your cognitive effort. If that layer is primarily execution of the known, doing competent, diligent work on problems that are already well-defined, you're in the part of the market that is being compressed. Think about two people, similar backgrounds, similar roles, both 3 years into a career in consulting, finance, or a similar knowledge-intensive field. The first person has spent those 3 years getting genuinely fast and thorough at the execution layer. They're reliable. They produce clean work quickly. They've been rewarded for it. Promotions, good reviews, trust from managers who like knowing the work will get done. From the outside, their career looks fine, but almost all of their value is concentrated in the execution layer. When you ask them what they're actually good at, the answer is, I get things done. I produce the output. The second person is also good at execution, but they've been quietly investing in a different layer. They've been developing the habit of asking, why does this analysis matter? What decision does it change? What would make the person receiving this think differently? They've been building relationships that are not transactional. They've been practicing the skill of sitting with ambiguity rather than immediately defaulting to process. Their work is messier in some ways. They're not always the fastest, but their value is located somewhere AI tools don't currently reach. Right now, in most organizations, these two people look almost identical. They might even be paid the same. In 3 years, the distance between them will be visible. In 5 years, it will be significant, and the first person will not see it coming because everything in their environment, their performance reviews, their manager's feedback, their sense of their own competence, will have failed to warn them. There's one mental model that I think reframes this clearly. Think of every skill as having two components: the delivery and the judgment behind it. Delivery is the execution, the ability to produce the output, apply the method, complete the task. Judgment is the layer above, deciding what to produce, why, for whom, under what constraints, and whether the output is actually serving the goal. In most knowledge work, delivery and judgment have been bundled together. You got paid for both. The person who could do the analysis was also the person who decided what to analyze. They were the same job. AI is unbundling that. Delivery is becoming a tool function. Judgment is remaining a human function. Which means the practical question for your own career is this: when you work, where are you actually operating? Are you primarily delivering, executing a well-defined task that someone else specified? Or are you primarily judging, deciding what matters, what the problem actually is, what the right output would serve? Most people, if they're honest, will find they're doing more delivery than they think. That's not a failure. It's just where most organizations concentrate their junior and mid-level work. But it means the skill investment worth making right now is not in getting faster at delivery. It's in getting better at judgment. Think of it this way. Delivery skills are like a car on a road that's being rerouted. Judgment skills are like the ability to read a map. So back to the question this video started with: which skills are quietly losing value right now? The answer is not a job title or a department. It's a layer. The execution layer. Diligent, competent, text-based application of known logic to well-defined problems is losing its scarcity, and therefore its value, across almost every knowledge work domain. The compressed insight is this: it's not what you can do that's losing value. It's how much of your value depends on the part that's becoming a commodity. That's the thing most people won't catch until the market has already priced it in. Now, this raises a harder question, and it's one worth thinking about carefully. If judgment is the skill that compounds, how do you actually develop judgment? It doesn't come from courses or certificates. It's not a skill you can practice in isolation. The mechanism for building it is different from almost everything you were taught about career development. That's what the next video is about.